This absolutely should not happen in our reality. We pointed the most advanced infrared telescope into the distant past. Researchers expected to see a dark universe and the slow formation of the very first stars. Instead, the infrared sensors detected objects of impossible sizes and shapes. The data collected is currently shattering the very foundations of modern science. For decades, astrophysicists have built a flawless chronology of our universe's development. We precisely calculated the time of the appearance of hydrogen and the first gas clouds. The Big Bang theory clearly described every stage of the expansion of space. Scientists drew up a detailed map of the evolution of matter from quarks to planets. This coherent system was considered the greatest achievement of the human mind. The James Webb Space Telescope was created specifically to confirm this theory. Engineers equipped it with a massive gold mirror to capture ancient light. The spacecraft traveled a distance of 1.5 million kilometers from our planet. It peered into regions of space hidden by dense cosmic dust. None of the spacecraft's creators were prepared for the results they obtained. The very first images of the early universe came as a real shock to cosmologists. Where there should be absolute emptiness, huge clusters of matter are shining. We discovered gigantic structures at stages when their existence is physically impossible. The age of these objects grossly violates all laws of thermodynamics and gravity. It's as if someone had placed grown adults in a crib for newborns. Our logic simply refuses to process such anomalous phenomena. Mathematical models produce critical errors when attempting to describe these images. At first, researchers tried to chalk it all up to a simple malfunction of the new optics. But lengthy calibrations and repeated checks confirmed the telescope's frightening accuracy. The error lies not in the gold mirrors, but in our understanding of reality. This crisis extends far beyond dry academic debates. If we were wrong about the basic chronology, then all of physics requires a re-evaluation. The concept of time is losing its familiar linearity and predictability. The laws of nature are ceasing to be a reliable foundation for our existence. We find ourselves on the brink of a fundamental collapse of the entire picture of the universe. The situation worsens with every new batch of astronomical data received. The telescope continues to find impossible objects in various sectors of the sky. The anomaly no longer looks like a random error in a single observation. It is taking on the characteristics of a frightening systemic failure on a global scale. Reality is showing us its true, alien, and cold face. Scientists are urgently convening conferences to discuss this sudden paradox. Old cosmology textbooks are rapidly becoming obsolete. We need a completely new language to describe the observed processes. Previous terms are no longer capable of conveying the scale of the unfolding catastrophe. The very foundation of science is crumbling before the eyes of the entire world. We have always looked at the stars with a sense of complete intellectual superiority. Humanity believed it had unraveled the main mysteries of empty space. Now, the cosmos is severely punishing us for this intellectual arrogance. We are being shown mechanisms that surpass any human capacity for understanding. The cosmos has turned out to be far older and more complex than our naive theories. This video will guide you through every stage of the collapse of the standard model of cosmology. We will examine in detail every mind-boggling discovery made by infrared telescopes. You will learn about the hidden crisis of the Hubble constant and the tearing of space. We will explore the boldest hypotheses attempting to save modern physics. By the end of this journey, your perception of the world will be forever changed. Our science has always relied on the rigorous concept of a cold and orderly Big Bang. This mathematically precise model posited the smooth and predictable evolution of matter from a single superdense point. Physicists calculated the cooling rate of the primordial plasma with astonishing accuracy, down to fractions of a second. The hot space gradually expanded, allowing elementary particles to combine into stable atoms of hydrogen and helium. It was an incredibly long, methodical, and agonizingly slow process of cosmic evolution. Scientists were completely confident in the flawlessness of this grand cosmic scenario. After this initial cooling, the so-called Dark Ages began. In this paradigm, the cosmos remained completely dark for the first hundreds of millions of years. There was not a single hot star or luminous galaxy in it. Huge, impenetrable clouds of primordial gas simply drifted in the infinitely expanding void. Gravity very slowly and reluctantly pulled this nebulous matter into the first dense clumps. No complex chemical elements physically existed during that gloomy era. The formation of the very first stars required a perfect alignment of circumstances and an immense amount of time. Gas pressure long resisted gravitational compression within these cold primordial clouds. These gigantic early stars consisted exclusively of hydrogen and possessed incredible mass. They lived very short lives and quickly exploded as dazzling supernovae. Only after their dramatic deaths did the cosmos become enriched with the heavy elements needed to build planets. The process was rigorous, extremely gradual, and absolutely intolerant of any haste. In this classical model, galaxies grew gradually, like ordinary living organisms. At first, they were merely tiny, shapeless clusters of young gas and stardust. Then, over hundreds of millions of years, they drew in new matter from the surrounding space. They often collided with one another, very slowly increasing their total mass. The formation of beautiful, orderly spiral arms required billions of years of continuous, calm rotation. The evolution of matter proceeded from simple to complex, without any sudden leaps. This theory perfectly explained what we saw near our planet. The nearest old galaxies fully matched all the scientists' mathematical predictions. The observed distribution of matter perfectly coincided with the results of the best computer simulations. Astronomers could measure their mass with extreme precision and calculate their rotation speeds. Everything fit harmoniously into the coherent paradigm of the standard cosmological model. Scientists considered this crucial chapter of science to be permanently and successfully closed. Before the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, we could only observe relatively nearby objects. The old Hubble telescope had serious optical limitations and could not see deep into the past. Due to the characteristics of its mirrors, it was physically unable to peer to the very edge of the universe. Its lenses primarily captured light that had already been greatly stretched. Astronomers were sorely lacking in infrared vision to penetrate dense dust clouds. We judged the early universe solely based on theoretical mathematical calculations. Confidence in their own correctness made the scientific community too complacent and overconfident. Researchers had practically stopped looking for fundamental errors in the basic equations of physics. They were engaged only in minor cosmetic adjustments to long-established constants. The picture of the surrounding world seemed to experts absolutely unshakable and monolithic. Science had become complacent in a state of supposed complete understanding of the universe. No one imagined that a single new instrument could shatter this order. The instruments of the new Golden Telescope were designed specifically to search for primordial gas clumps. Scientists simply wanted to confirm their calculations with visual images from deep space. They sincerely expected to see the dim and shapeless clusters of the first hot stars. The machine was meticulously tuned to detect incredibly faint infrared signals at the very edge of time. Expectations for this costly mission were as conservative and mundane as possible. No one expected a revolution in astrophysics from the very first photographs. We firmly believed that we knew the exact age of everything around us. The figure of 13.8 billion years had become an indisputable dogma. It was solemnly inscribed in every encyclopedia and scientific reference book in the world. This specific date had been calculated using a multitude of different and independent methods. Radioisotope analysis and the study of cosmic background radiation yielded strikingly similar results. Any doubt regarding this well-established age was considered a sign of complete unprofessionalism. But reality was preparing to deal a crushing blow to our arrogance. The universe turned out to be completely uninterested in confirming our primitive models. It reliably concealed structures of unimaginable scale within its primordial darkness. Deep space held mysteries for which Earth's science was utterly unprepared. And when the golden mirrors finally focused on the edge of time, the illusions crumbled. What appeared before the scientists' eyes forever changed the course of history. The first data from orbit made astronomers doubt their own eyes. The new spacecraft's infrared cameras captured sections of the sky at the dawn of time. There were ancient galaxies whose light had traveled billions of years to reach us. According to all known laws of physics, we should have seen tiny embryos of star systems. But instead, the color screens showed us enormous, fully formed structures. This incredible sight came as a real shock to the entire mission control team. These early objects looked just as mature as our own Milky Way. They had strikingly distinct shapes, very dense cores, and enormous stellar mass. Forming such a complex structure requires billions of years of continuous gravitational work. Yet they were already calmly existing just a couple hundred million years after their supposed inception. This is an absolute temporal paradox that ruthlessly shatters the entire established chronology of events. Scientists were looking at cosmic infants that looked like gray-haired old men. The situation quickly began to spiral out of the usual academic control. Soon, a galaxy was discovered whose mass exceeds that of the Sun by tens of billions of times. In that extremely early era, there simply wasn't that much building material in space. Gaseous matter would never have had time to cool and coalesce into such a gigantic and dense object. Fundamental physical processes have very strict limitations on their rate of occurrence. Matter is physically incapable of moving and condensing faster than the limits set by nature. It's as if archaeologists had unearthed an ancient Egyptian tomb and, instead of the expected stone axes, found a modern, functioning nuclear reactor there. The existence of such unimaginably advanced systems in the early universe completely refutes the theory of gradual evolution. They appeared far too rapidly, as if they had sprung fully formed from nowhere. Modern science simply does not know of any mechanisms for such rapid growth of star clusters. We must acknowledge a huge gap in our knowledge of the formation of early matter. Initially, scientists tentatively attempted to explain this with unusually dense clouds of primordial gas. They hypothesized that the very first stars could have formed at an incredible anomalous rate. Proponents of this idea desperately tried to salvage the standard model by invoking extreme environmental conditions. But even the most powerful and aggressive computer simulations failed to reproduce this phenomenon. The simulations stubbornly show that the intense radiation from the first stars would have torn apart such dense clouds. Rapid formation would simply have destroyed the growing galaxy with its own thermal energy. And the further and deeper we look into the past, the worse the overall situation becomes. The number of massive galaxies found has long exceeded all acceptable statistical norms. These are no longer isolated observational errors or local anomalies in the early cosmos. A frightening global and absolutely systematic pattern in the structure of the universe is emerging. The entire early universe is literally overflowing with colossal objects that categorically should not be there. This indisputable fact directly points to a fundamental error in our basic calculations. Even greater panic was caused by the fact that some of these structures contain a huge amount of cosmic dust. Ordinary dust forms only after old and massive stars explode as supernovae. This directly implies that several full generations of stars have already come and gone in those clusters. Such complex life cycles require incredible spans of time that simply do not exist in the standard model. The familiar chronology is compressed to absurd lengths, completely ignoring the strict laws of thermodynamics. Physicists are finding the rigid framework of the universe's age unbearably constricting. We face a monumental and as yet unsolvable contradiction between observed facts and theories. Either we are completely miscalculating stellar masses and distances to these distant objects, or empty space itself has evolved according to strict and rapid laws completely unknown to us. But the newest telescope consistently transmits absolutely clear and unambiguous data to Earth. The optical instruments are working perfectly and scanning the deep past without a hitch. The error lies solely in the human interpretation of these precise light signals. Many researchers desperately tried to find at least some technical explanation for this global catastrophe. They loudly blamed inaccurate initial instrument calibration or optical illusions caused by gravitational lenses. Part of the scientific community hoped for a simple software glitch in the image processing algorithms. But rigorous independent verifications by numerous different teams have fully confirmed the original data. These monstrous ancient galaxies are absolutely real and are located exactly where they are. We must bitterly admit our complete defeat in the face of these cosmic anomalies. This stunning discovery literally leaves no stone unturned in our understanding of the past. We naively thought we were reading an extremely clear and logical book on the evolution of matter. But suddenly it turned out that in this complex book, all the opening chapters are completely jumbled up. The maturity of these unimaginably distant worlds is frankly terrifying in its inexplicable unnaturalness. The foundation of modern physics has developed a massive crack that continues to widen rapidly with each passing day. And this is only the first part of the enormous scientific catastrophe looming over us. The collapse of the chronology of the early cosmos inevitably brings other problems in its wake. To understand the scale of the catastrophe, we need to measure the rate of expansion of space. This rate is called the Hubble constant and is the cornerstone of all astrophysics. Knowing this critical parameter allows us to accurately rewind time and calculate the age of all existence. We can imagine the universe as a massive film that scientists are trying to play in reverse. But this is where the real nightmare for modern theoretical physics begins. For many years, we were confident in the absolute reliability of our measuring instruments. Astronomers used the light from distant pulsating and exploding stars as reference beacons in the void. These powerful explosions of old stars have a strictly defined and always identical peak brightness. This unique physical property allows us to calculate precise distances to the most distant galaxies. Scientists call these bright objects cosmic-scale standard candles. The method seemed completely flawless and yielded highly stable results regarding the expansion of space. We sincerely believed that the fabric of the universe was stretching at a predictable and uniform rate. Then a second, no less reliable method of incredibly precise measurement emerged. Scientists began actively studying the cosmic microwave background radiation left over immediately after the Big Bang. This faint glow of cooling plasma fills absolutely all the space around us. The map of this ancient light carefully preserves the imprints of the early density of primordial matter. Special spacecraft have been scanning this echo of creation with high precision for years. By analyzing these cold microwave patterns, physicists derived their own independent value for the expansion rate. Both methods were based on ironclad logic and the best technologies of their time. And this is where reality delivers its most insidious and devastating blow. The expansion rate values from these two reliable methods categorically do not match. The difference between them is so great that it cannot be attributed to mere instrument error. Mathematics flatly refuses to reconcile these figures into a single logical equation. Local supernovae confidently indicate that the universe is expanding much faster than cosmic microwave background radiation predicts. The gap between these measurements continues to grow with every new improvement in our ground-based and orbital telescopes. This fundamental contradiction shatters the entire familiar geometry of the physical world as we know it. This unsolvable problem has been dubbed the Hubble tension, and it is truly terrifying scientists. If space is expanding at different speeds, then our basic distance calculations are completely wrong. The entire calibrated scale of the universe's dimensions begins to shift and distort beyond recognition. We are rapidly losing the ability to adequately assess the scale of the events unfolding around us. A fundamental constant has turned out to be a variable and extremely treacherous optical illusion. At first, theorists tried to find simple errors in the calibration of local telescopes. They double-checked the data hundreds of times, sincerely hoping for a simple and mundane explanation. Physicists blamed cosmic dust, imperfect lenses, and atmospheric interference. But with the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope, the situation only got significantly worse. The state-of-the-art infrared telescope measured the distance to pulsating stars with unprecedented precision. Its gold-coated mirrors were able to pierce through the thick veil of gas and see individual stars in distant galaxies. The result was truly shocking and definitively confirmed that the local measurements are absolutely correct. The instrument completely ruled out the possibility of error in the older optical instruments of the previous generation. This means that those who painstakingly study ancient microwave radiation are wrong. But their complex mathematics has also been repeatedly verified by the planet's best minds and supercomputers. We have unexpectedly found ourselves in a situation where two true facts are in stark contradiction with one another. In our everyday reality, things are not so simple. Logic demands only one correct answer. Such a paradox ruthlessly destroys the very concept of the knowability of the world around us. Growing anxiety is forcing physicists to put forward the most frightening and radical hypotheses. What if the laws of gravity change imperceptibly, depending on the density of the cosmic environment? Perhaps dark energy behaves completely differently at different stages of the universe's life. What if the invisible fabric of space is capable of stretching unevenly in sudden jerks and wild waves? This directly implies that we live in an extremely unstable and unpredictable physical environment. Our solar system may be located within a peculiar local spatial bubble of reduced density. Such hidden instability renders any long-term predictions utterly meaningless and speculative. If the rate of expansion can change suddenly, the future of the cosmos becomes extremely uncertain. Space could suddenly tear apart or begin to contract sharply back into a super-dense point. We can no longer guarantee the absolute safety of even the fundamental laws of energy conservation. The very foundation of physics is cracking loudly at the seams under the pressure of these new, frightening figures. The Hubble constant crisis has become the most serious intellectual challenge to the human mind. It makes it crystal clear that our primitive models work only under ideal, hothouse conditions. As soon as we try to look at the true scale, the illusion of control vanishes instantly. The universe turns out to be a far more complex and dangerous mechanism than we previously thought. And this misunderstanding is directly linked to the problem of the age of space itself. This frightening situation is no longer limited to isolated patches of the starry sky. We observe this inexplicable physical split absolutely everywhere we point our best instruments. This is by no means a local error in glass lenses, but a universal crisis in the very structure of the universe. An invisible defect permeates every distant galaxy and every nebula within sight. Space everywhere stubbornly demonstrates its defiance and complete lack of basic logic. Scientists literally cannot find a single mathematically stable corner in the observable universe. Astronomers have begun desperately scanning the emptiest regions of the vast void between clusters. They hoped to find stable zones there where the good old laws still work normally. These gigantic cosmic deserts occupy most of the volume of our expanding universe. But the cold vacuum turned out to be just as mathematically contradictory as the dense active galactic nuclei. Everywhere, without exception, there is this strange, unsettling anomaly of a mismatch between masses and the rate of spatial expansion. This systemic failure has engulfed absolutely all of the cosmic architecture available to us, without the slightest exception. The sense of an impending global error is only amplified many times over when studying the distribution of stellar matter. Galaxies should align into enormous, long filaments according to the strict rules of gravitational attraction. This grand cosmic web should have a predictable structure of intertwined gas and dark matter. However, we constantly find gigantic voids and abnormally dense walls that grossly violate these strict rules. Huge stellar structures form where there is simply not enough initial building material for them. The shape of the universe looks as if it has been actively influenced by super-powerful forces unknown to us. Modern classical theory of gravity is simply incapable of explaining such strange spatial geometry. The scale of the problem is gradually becoming apparent to every rank-and-file employee at the world's scientific observatories. Researchers can no longer calmly ignore this looming storm of contradictory astronomical data. High-orbit telescopes generate terabytes of new information every day, rapidly dismantling old paradigms. We watch in a daze as a vast and highly complex intellectual edifice slowly crumbles. Every new discovery knocks another vital brick from the foundation of our academic self-assurance. If these inexplicable oddities are occurring everywhere, then the very basic model of reality is completely wrong. We have not merely made a minor error in complex calculations. We have chosen the wrong path of knowledge from the very beginning. All of our vaunted physical science has described nothing more than a superficial and deceptive optical illusion of a complex world. The deep inner mechanisms of the universe operate on entirely different, terrifying natural principles. This cold, indisputable fact causes prominent scientists to experience a genuine and profound existential dread. The legacy of many generations of brilliant thinkers could suddenly turn out to be nothing more than a useless pile of old papers. We are beginning to clearly understand that our earthly mathematics may be too primitive for the cosmos. Our formulas perfectly describe geometric shapes that simply do not exist in the wild and chaotic nature. We try to measure the bottomless, raging ocean with an ordinary school ruler and are genuinely surprised by the inconsistencies we find. The universe punishes us incredibly harshly for this unsubstantiated, arrogant confidence in our own scientific correctness. The harsh limits of our very narrow human biological perception are being made painfully clear to us. We look at the boundless world through the tiny keyhole of our extremely limited instruments. The most terrifying aspect of this growing global systemic breakdown is the complete absence of alternative solutions. When Newton's familiar mechanics began to break down 100 years ago, we already had the brilliant theory of relativity. Now, we have absolutely no new salvific paradigm for a logical explanation of all these anomalies. Theorists propose dozens of wild ideas every day. but none of them stand up to rigorous practical testing. We stand very alone above the dark abyss of total scientific ignorance, completely empty-handed. Physics has hit a solid, invisible wall that is currently impossible to break through with earthly mathematics. This intellectual crisis is spreading far faster than the speed of light across all the leading scientific institutions on the planet. Astrophysicists are forced to publicly admit their complete helplessness to journalists with undisguised bitterness. Popular public lectures on the birth and evolution of the universe now sound very uncertain and are full of cautious caveats. We have irrevocably lost our lofty status as sages who understand the intricate workings of nature's vast clockwork mechanism. We have instantly become bewildered and frightened witnesses to an inexplicable and grandiose cosmic spectacle. The entire former authority of the exact sciences is undergoing its most severe upheaval in the last few centuries. Realizing the scale and global nature of the problem forces us to look at familiar things in a completely new way. If space behaves completely unpredictably everywhere, we can no longer trust even our own eyes. Light from distant twinkling stars may be distorted in exotic ways that are completely unknown and unexplored by us. The entire observed picture of the beautiful and familiar night sky may turn out to be one colossal optical illusion. We cannot be absolutely certain even of those obvious facts that have been considered indisputable for many centuries. The illusion of total control is fading, leaving humanity alone with a primal fear of the unknown. And this widespread failure of fundamental theory directly affects the future fate of our own world. We can no longer guarantee with absolute certainty the stability of that region of space where our warm sun resides. If the basic and unshakable laws of physics can be broken so easily, our safety is nothing more than a fortunate temporary coincidence. A global systemic breakdown of reality could affect our planetary system at any completely unexpected moment. We find ourselves utterly defenseless in the face of incomprehensible and colossal cosmic processes. The collapse of basic cosmological models immediately puts our main invisible pillars at risk. To explain the rotation of spiral galaxies, physicists long ago devised the concept of hidden dark matter. This invisible mass was supposed to make up the bulk of all matter in the vast cosmos. For decades, it served as a sort of universal glue for all of astrophysics. Without it, star systems would simply have been torn to pieces by centrifugal forces. For a long time, this convenient theoretical framework seemed absolutely unshakable. Scientists built the most complex computer simulations based on this hidden substance. However, new data from orbital telescopes render this glue completely unnecessary and meaningless. Deep space observations yield facts that cannot be fitted into the old framework. We find ourselves facing a severe crisis in fundamental science. Abnormally mature galaxies in the early universe have shapes that are too regular to account for without this hidden mass. Their internal gravity functions perfectly without the intervention of invisible, mysterious dark components. Star clusters exhibit incredible structural density at stages when they should not exist at all. This contradicts all calculations of the formation rate of cosmic objects. Classical physics simply does not allow for such rapid ordering of matter. If dark matter forms very slowly, early galaxies should not be stable. The process of accumulating invisible mass requires billions of years of continuous gravitational work. However, ancient structures exist and perfectly preserve their dense and beautiful spiral arms. Their symmetry boggles the imagination and shatters established chronological frameworks. This deals a direct, fatal blow to the old theory of an invisible cosmic framework. The second pillar of our modern physics is built on the concept of dark energy. This mysterious force has historically been responsible for the accelerated expansion of the surrounding space. It was believed that it uniformly pushes matter in all possible directions. The current crisis surrounding the Hubble constant makes this concept alarmingly unstable and highly contradictory. Different measurement methods yield completely incompatible results for the expansion rate of galaxies. If the expansion rate is non-uniform, dark energy cannot be considered a constant fundamental force. It must change over time depending on the specific epoch of the cosmos's existence. Such variability completely and definitively destroys the standard cosmological model. Physicists are forced to rewrite the fundamental equations upon which the entire picture of the world was based. We suddenly lose 2/3 of the entire energy balance of the material universe as we know it. The widespread rejection of these two invisible entities signifies the complete collapse of modern astrophysics. For many years, we built massive underground detectors to search for dark matter particles. Scientists descended into deep mines, trying to detect elusive signals. We have spent billions of dollars on complex equipment based on a completely flawed theoretical foundation. Not a single one of these ultra-sensitive instruments has ever produced a real result. Now, these grandiose research facilities look like monuments to our human hubris. Huge tanks of liquid xenon deep underground stand as utterly useless dead weight. We have been diligently searching for a black cat in a completely empty, silent, and dark room. The negative results of these large-scale experiments were ignored by the scientific community for years. Now, it has become physically impossible to ignore the lack of evidence. Without accounting for dark components, our mathematical formulas for gravity simply stop working over long distances. We must bitterly acknowledge an incredibly frightening and uncomfortable fact. Einstein's classical equations may be incomplete or entirely erroneous on cosmic scales. General relativity perfectly describes the motion of planets within our solar system. But when we move to the galactic level, its predictions diverge catastrophically from reality. Thinking outside the framework of the theory of relativity has become an extremely difficult challenge for any modern scientist. The entire academic foundation of the 20th century is based on these elegant mathematical calculations. Rejecting them is akin to the absurd demand to forget the familiar alphabet and start writing words using unknown symbols. The scientific community's psychological resistance to new ideas has reached an unprecedented level. But the cold facts of new optical observations leave us with absolutely no other logical choice. This sudden scientific collapse directly reveals the depth of our fundamental misconceptions. We invented convenient invisible helpers simply to plug the huge holes in the equations. Instead of honestly admitting our lack of understanding, we invented complex fairy tales about dark matter. Nature is punishing science very harshly for its naive attempt to force strict facts to fit a desired outcome. The illusion of our complete understanding of the world around us is crumbling into gray dust. The relentless onslaught of data from the Webb telescope leaves no stone unturned of our former certainty. Deep field images reveal a cosmos governed by entirely different physical laws. Every new anomalous galaxy discovered drives another nail into the coffin of the standard model. Observational astronomy has finally overtaken theoretical physics by several decades. All that remains for scientists is to helplessly record these impossible phenomena onto digital sensors. We now stand alone facing the daunting prospect of creating an entirely new physics. We urgently need fundamentally new theories of gravity and the evolution of deep space. These theories must work equally well and flawlessly in both the early universe and today. They must mathematically explain the Hubble tension without resorting to the invisible crutches of dark energy. So far, No one in the scientific community knows the path to these salvific equations. This directly implies that we are in a state of profound conceptual blindness. Our limited minds are physically incapable of comprehending the actual mechanisms governing the cosmos around us. We merely observe the results of their workings through the lenses of powerful orbital telescopes. The essence of the fundamental processes taking place remains an absolute and grim mystery to humanity. This total intellectual helplessness is causing a rapidly growing sense of existential anxiety among all researchers. If our basic understanding of gravity is completely wrong, it affects absolutely everyone. Gravity strictly governs the orbits of all planets and reliably protects us from the deadly threats of outer space. Ignorance of its true physical nature means our absolute inability to foresee impending cosmic catastrophes. We are hurtling through the galaxy, completely unable to steer our ship and unaware of our final destination. We have become mere helpless passengers on a vessel governed by unknown laws of cosmic navigation. The dismantling of the established theory of dark matter is by no means merely a paradigm shift in science. It is a harsh and timely reminder of our very modest and highly vulnerable place in the universe. All of humanity will have to relearn true humility in the face of the infinite and terrifyingly cold void. And the first necessary step toward this is to seek new explanations to replace the collapsed old dogmas. An era of the wildest, strangest, and most terrifying scientific hypotheses in all of human history is beginning. Faced with a global catastrophe, scientists began frantically searching for any logical way out of the conceptual impasse. The first desperate attempt to salvage the situation was the hypothesis of a simple measurement error in the redshift. Astronomers cautiously suggested the possibility of light being distorted by interstellar dust over vast distances. If ancient galaxies are hidden behind dense clouds, their spectrum might appear artificially aged. This offered a glimmer of hope for saving the familiar picture of the universe. Such a convenient explanation allowed the chronology of the Standard Model to be preserved entirely without major structural changes. The anomalous objects would simply turn out to be much closer to us than the initial calculations indicated. Physicists clung to this lifeline with the desperate desperation of drowning men. No one wanted to voluntarily abandon years of work and admit they were completely wrong. However, a deeper and more thorough spectral analysis quickly and ruthlessly destroyed this comforting theory. The Webb telescope possesses phenomenal sensitivity for perfectly separating the chemical composition of dust from starlight. Its infrared sensors are capable of penetrating the densest gas and dust nebulae of the early universe. The data unequivocally and uncompromisingly confirmed the enormous intergalactic distances to these abnormally mature cosmic objects. The error lies not at all in the distortion of light by ancient dust, but in our own primitive understanding of time. Reluctantly, theorists had to completely abandon the easy path. An old and long-forgotten theory of light fatigue has rapidly returned to modern scientific discourse. This radical concept was proposed at the very dawn of observational astronomy. It boldly posits that photons lose their original energy during an incredibly long cosmic journey. As light travels endlessly through cold space, it begins to redshift on its own. The interstellar medium acts as an invisible brake on the flying particles of light. This hypothesis instantly rules out the expansion of the universe and any need for dark energy whatsoever. Space suddenly becomes absolutely static, eternal, and unchanging on its colossal scale. The mysterious redshift turns into a simple optical effect of light wave fatigue. Such a model is incredibly appealing due to its mathematical simplicity and complete absence of invisible components. But rigorous observational physics does not tolerate such elegant and simple solutions to the most complex problems. The theory of light fatigue is too starkly at odds with all direct observations of supernova explosions. These colossal cosmic cataclysms serve as standard candles for measuring distances. We see very clearly a significant stretching of the duration of these bright explosions over time. Distant supernovae fade out much more slowly than their nearby counterparts due to relativistic effects. This indisputably proves the physical expansion of the very fabric of the universe. The observed time dilation during explosions cannot be explained by a simple loss of kinetic energy by light. A comfortable static universe remains nothing more than a very beautiful mathematical fantasy. It has been definitively rejected by harsh physical reality and irrefutable facts. We found ourselves once again at a dead end, having lost yet another desperate attempt to save physics as it crumbled before our eyes. Scientists had to seek out even stranger and more frightening concepts for governing the cosmos. The next highly radical idea was modified Newtonian dynamics on a gigantic cosmic scale. Scientists boldly proposed a modification of the classical law of universal gravitation at the outskirts of spiral galaxies. At very low acceleration speeds, basic gravity begins to attract objects much more strongly than usual. This hypothesis eliminates the need for an invisible dark glue to hold star systems together. The equations converge beautifully without invoking any mystical additional masses. Such an elegant mathematical solution perfectly explains the rapid rotation of distant galaxies around their centers. But this modified theory does absolutely nothing to solve the main problem of modern astrophysics. The impossible and frightening maturity of early objects remains a completely inexplicable mystery. Modified gravity does nothing to accelerate the formation of stars and planets after the Big Bang. Consequently, this mathematical trick turned out to be yet another useless half-measure in the midst of a deep crisis. Then, a terrifying hypothesis about the existence of primordial black holes quickly emerged in scientific circles. We are talking about gravitational monsters of absolutely colossal and unimaginable sizes in the early universe. These objects may not have formed from dying massive stars at all, as is the case today. They were born from direct, ultra-dense concentrations of energy in the first seconds after the Big Bang. Space itself collapsed into black holes due to monstrous thermal pressure. These primordial giants served as incredibly powerful gravitational seeds in the void of the forming cosmos. Full-fledged new star systems grew rapidly and incredibly quickly around them. This mathematically explains the high overall rate of formation of complex structures in the very early, hot universe. The black hole's enormous mass drew in gas and dust with phenomenal efficiency. But this controversial model carries a hidden and highly destructive threat to physics. Accepting the theory of primordial black holes requires a complete rewriting of all the basic laws of thermodynamics. We will have to remodel the behavior of the primordial hot, unstable plasma at the dawn of time. Each new hypothesis proposed merely temporarily plugs one hole in the sinking ship of science. At the same time, it immediately creates a new gaping hole in a completely different part of the theoretical hull. We are trying to patch cracks in the foundation of a building that has already begun to collapse rapidly. Leading physicists seem to be trying to assemble a huge and complex conceptual puzzle. The problem lies in the fact that the pieces themselves come from completely different boxes. No modern model can simultaneously explain both early galaxies and the Hubble paradox. We are dealing with an unpredictable reality that categorically rejects our uniform, strict rules. This has brought the entire global scientific community to a state of complete intellectual paralysis. The global inadequacy of all proposed explanations points directly to an incredibly frightening hidden truth. We are definitely missing some fundamental force of wild nature on a gigantic scale. Our best optical instruments capture only a faint, blurred shadow of grandiose multidimensional processes. The ordinary human brain is rigidly limited to the three-dimensional perception of a meager biological species. We are physically incapable of comprehending the true complex architecture of deep, cold space. All these endless debates and vacillations among physicists do not go unnoticed by billions of ordinary people. The constant, nerve-wracking shift in hypotheses creates an atmosphere of total uncertainty and instability in the world. The protective psychological barrier of the strict laws of physics is rapidly crumbling before our eyes. The vast cosmos is once again becoming a frightening, wild, and utterly unpredictable environment. We wander blindly in pitch darkness without the slightest hope of imminent enlightenment. In desperate attempts to find a way out of this trap, some scientists have gone to extreme lengths. They have proposed a complete re-evaluation of the most unshakable fundamental constant in all of modern astronomy. If the galaxies we've found appear too old for our universe, the problem may lie close at hand. Perhaps we have made an incredibly fatal and foolish mistake in determining the age of our very physical world. This frightening and audacious idea forever changes our general perception of the duration of our own planetary existence. To preserve the logic behind the development of these surprisingly mature galaxies, we need to grant them significantly more time. Much more time than the classic and long-established model of 13 billion long years allows. A number of prominent and authoritative astrophysicists have proposed a shockingly simple yet unbearably radical idea for universal salvation. They confidently declared that our observable universe is nearly twice as old as we have always thought. According to their complex mathematical calculations, the new age is exactly 26.7 billion years. This incredibly bold doubling of time instantly resolves the main problem posed by the anomalous objects found in the early cosmos. It thereby gives those colossal, massive galaxies sufficient time for a very peaceful formation. Stars receive their rightful and well-deserved billions of years for slow birth, long lives, and supernova explosions. Slow, fundamental gravity has time to gather hot dust and gas into orderly and regular spiral arms. The chronological paradox evaporates, restoring to us our familiar and much-desired academic peace of mind. An additional 13 billion years provides the perfect buffer for the slowest physical processes to unfold. Over this immense span of time, even the faintest gravitational disturbances can give rise to gigantic stellar metropolises. Galactic nuclei are able to gradually accumulate mass without violating the strict laws of thermodynamics. Ancient black holes have time to swallow enough matter to reach their unimaginable supermassive sizes. Scientists no longer need to invent fantastical mechanisms of instant growth for these cosmic monsters. To justify such a colossal time shift, theorists had to significantly modify the basic equations of light motion. They skillfully combined the concept of light fatigue with the classic and familiar expansion of multidimensional space. Light not only physically stretches along with the expanding vacuum, but also loses its energy over time. This clever hybrid mathematical approach allows the age scale to be stretched to the values absolutely necessary for astronomers. On paper, everything fits together perfectly, allowing the objects observed by the Webb telescope to exist quite legitimately in the distant past. Such manipulations of fundamental constants provoke very serious controversy in rigorous academic circles. Changing the parameters of the speed or energy of light calls into question our entire system of cosmic measurements. We risk turning exact science into a set of convenient mathematical tricks to save old dogmas. Fitting formulas to the desired result has always been the most alarming symptom of a deep systemic crisis. Physicists seem to be trying to repair a broken, delicate clockwork mechanism with a crude hammer and electrical tape. The direct consequences of such a radical step for human perception are truly terrifying and absolutely catastrophic. A sharp doubling of the age directly implies that exactly half of the entire history of the universe is completely hidden from our eyes. We have irrevocably lost 13 billion years of the long evolution of matter, about which we now know absolutely nothing. This is a gigantic, utterly unfathomable abyss of ancient time in which absolutely anything could have happened. Against this grand backdrop, our modern civilization appears as an insignificant statistical microscopic error in the Great Timer. During this vast and completely hidden interval of time, countless civilizations could have freely emerged and perished. Incredible forms of life could have formed there unhindered, utilizing complex physical principles entirely unknown to us. All of our closely observed human history is merely an infinitely brief moment against the backdrop of this overwhelming infinity. This terrifying concept deals a direct and crushing blow to the long-standing anthropocentric pride of our human species. We are merely late and accidental guests at a grand party that has been going on for an eternity. The realization of this new colossal timescale makes the mind shudder at its own absolute insignificance. Humanity's entire complex journey, from the first stone tools to orbital stations, now amounts to a fraction of a second. Vast empires rose and crumbled to dust, while the light from ancient stars traveled only a tiny fraction of the way. Planets have had time to cool, become covered in deep oceans, and burn up in the rays of dying suns millions of times over. This temporal abyss completely devalues all our global achievements and our most ambitious plans for the future. Moreover, this new hypothesis raises new, even more terrifying and unsolvable astronomical questions. If the universe is truly 26 billion years old, why do we see no clear traces of this antiquity anywhere? Where are those super-civilizations that had twice as much time for their incredible technological development? The old Fermi paradox of cosmic silence instantly becomes even more ominous, dark, and paralyzing. The vast cosmos should be literally teeming with vibrant life, yet it maintains a cold, eerie, and utterly dead silence. It is logical to assume that over such an unimaginable span of time, a superior intelligence must have completely subjugated matter. Ancient civilizations had enough eras to construct astro-engineering structures the size of entire spiral galaxies. They could have learned to extract pure energy directly from the vacuum or manipulate the gravity of stellar systems. Yet we observe only dead rock, superheated gas, and blind, destructive thermonuclear reactions. Either incredibly advanced life knows how to hide perfectly, or any intelligence inevitably and rapidly destroys itself. The change in the fundamental age also severely disrupts our detailed mathematical models of the evolution of all chemical elements. The doubled lifespan of the universe implies a completely different physical balance of heavy metals in ancient star systems. Biology and complex chemistry also urgently require a complete re-evaluation in the context of this new and frightening time frame. A single strange astronomical discovery rapidly triggers an irreversible chain reaction of destruction across absolutely all related disciplines. Science is simply forced to rewrite all school textbooks, starting with the very basics of the universe. Physicists' new calculations directly affect the history of the formation of our own solar system and the planet Earth itself. If the timer was set much earlier, the radioactive decay of isotopes would have followed a different, rigid scenario. Standard methods for dating ancient meteorites and deep rock formations may turn out to be fundamentally incorrect. We will have to re-evaluate the age of every stone beneath our feet and every atom in our bodies. The foundation of geology is beginning to shake dangerously in the wake of the rapid collapse of astrophysical cosmological theories. The most alarming aspect of these constant recalculations lies in the realization of the terrifying malleability of the very concept of time. We have long been accustomed to viewing time as an absolute monolith, a reliable, stable, and utterly unchanging river. But suddenly, it turns out that we can surprisingly easily double its duration by simply changing the mathematical formulas on the board. Time turned out to be merely an illusion of our feeble biological perception, a convenient parameter in someone else's complex game. And we have absolutely no idea who actually sets these strict and merciless rules. If the true age of the world can be revised so radically and easily, we lose our firm footing. Tomorrow, new data from orbital telescopes may show that the universe is 100 billion years old, or a mere pitiful 100,000. The surrounding reality becomes frighteningly fluid, incredibly unstable, and heavily dependent on our imperfect instruments. Our fragile minds lose the ability to adequately and quickly navigate the grand scale of the physical events unfolding. This causes a profound and incurable existential shock in absolutely every thinking person on the planet. The hypothesis of the New Age has not yet become a universally accepted dogma of the entire global scientific community. It merely vividly demonstrates the extreme degree of despair among theorists in the face of new, irrefutable orbital facts. We are forced to constantly dismantle the most basic concepts solely to preserve at least the remnants of elementary logic. Every new proposed explanation only serves to highlight even more starkly the full extent of our global conceptual misunderstanding. And this brings us squarely to the bleakest and darkest philosophical aspect of our modern space research. All these endless scientific crises inexorably lead humanity to one inevitable and very grim conclusion. Perhaps we have simply reached the absolute limit of our biological and intellectual human capabilities once and for all. Our brain evolved over a very long time in the harsh conditions of the savannah, exclusively to solve simple, basic survival tasks. It excels at throwing a spear with precision, but inevitably falters in the face of the multidimensional and complex structure of space. We are desperately trying to comprehend quantum gravity using a neural processor originally designed for the mundane task of finding food. Cosmic anomalies clearly and quite brutally demonstrate that reality is not obligated to be comprehensible to the average person. The vast universe exists by its own rules, which are utterly indifferent to our feeble earthly logic. We have arrogantly decided that earthly mathematics can fully describe absolutely any complex physical phenomenon. But mathematics is merely our local language, not the universal basic code of the entire cosmos. Translating from the alien language of deep space into the familiar human language results in fatal and very dangerous errors. Our biological nervous system is physically incapable of visualizing processes beyond the three familiar spatial coordinates. Any attempt to clearly imagine the curvature of time or multidimensional vibrating strings ends in a banal cognitive breakdown. Scientists work daily with dry, multi-layered equations, but have long since ceased to understand their true, intuitive meaning. We construct large-scale mathematical models of 10-dimensional universes while remaining blind prisoners of our three-dimensional cage. The mind has hopelessly run into an insurmountable, impenetrable wall of its own evolutionary architecture, which cannot be destroyed. We have suddenly found ourselves locked tight inside the information bubble of our own highly limited biological perception. The James Webb and Hubble telescopes serve merely as high-tech prosthetics for our very imperfect eyes. They greatly expand the spectrum, but are completely incapable of changing the very essence of our limited human thought. We see only a flat, three-dimensional slice of reality, completely ignoring the other hidden dimensions inaccessible to us. And the truest cause of all anomalies may well be hidden precisely there, far beyond the limits of our senses. The constantly changing hypotheses about the exact age of the universe serve as the best proof of our total conceptual blindness. We blindly and clumsily feel our way around a huge elephant in a completely dark room, drawing extremely inaccurate conclusions. We only think we are in control, juggling space expansion formulas on blackboards in lecture halls. In reality, we are simply working hard to fit the facts to our very limited psychological need for familiar comfort. Admitting our absolute ignorance is too painful for humanity and unbearably frightening for our fragile psyche. The academic community has built a very powerful system of psychological defense against the realization of its own intellectual helplessness. We deliberately invent complex terms like dark energy to mask the vast, terrifying gaps in our basic knowledge. This convenient illusion of understanding protects us from the paralyzing horror of the primordial and utterly alien chaos of the cosmos. Scientists continue to confidently write dissertations while the very foundation of their science crumbles into fine radioactive dust. Such a global collective denial of harsh reality becomes increasingly absurd against the backdrop of new data from orbital observations. The growing existential anxiety of modern society is directly linked to the loss of the illusion of complete control. In the past, science always gave us unshakable confidence in the future and a very clear picture of the world. Now, every new image from Earth's orbit brings only new questions and unsolvable paradoxes. The distant future of humanity has finally ceased to be a logical continuation of a well-studied and safe past. We are stepping into impenetrable and cold darkness, fully aware that our dim lanterns are shining in the wrong direction. If the fundamental laws of physics can be so incredibly easily shattered, our existence becomes critically and terrifyingly fragile. We can no longer be absolutely certain of the immutability of planetary orbits or the stability of solar energy. Global catastrophes may suddenly emerge from layers of reality we do not even suspect exist. Invisible forces governing incredibly mature early galaxies could manifest here destructively at any moment. We live peacefully on a massive powder keg, the detonator mechanism of which is completely and utterly unknown to us. A sudden local change in the constants of gravity or the speed of light would instantly and painlessly destroy the entire Earth's biosphere. We would physically detect no warning signs whatsoever due to the extreme speed at which these fundamental shifts propagate. All solid matter could simply lose its atomic cohesion, dissolving into a cold ocean of hard primary radiation. Earth spins alone in absolute emptiness, completely unprotected from the whims of higher cosmic mechanics. This blood-chilling global vulnerability renders all our petty earthly conflicts utterly laughable and meaningless. This primal fear of the unknown severely paralyzes our drive for distant and daring space travel. How can we calmly fly to distant stars if we do not fundamentally understand the nature of gravity in empty space? Our grandiose interstellar ships could easily be torn apart by forces that simply do not exist in our school textbooks. The boundless cosmos has ceased to be a romantic, luminous ocean for future great geographical discoveries of new worlds. It has rapidly transformed into an aggressive and deadly environment with physical laws that are completely incomprehensible to us. Projects for large-scale colonization of cold Mars or Jupiter's distant icy moons now look like naive games. Building fortified, airtight bases on other planets will not save us from fundamental shifts in the structure of the universe itself. Engineers are desperately trying to calculate the thickness of protective bulkheads, relying on physics that is cracking loudly at the seams. Any conscious step beyond Earth's protective magnetosphere turns into a deadly lottery with unknown rules. The technological optimism of the last century is rapidly giving way to the harshest pragmatism of survival in a very hostile and dark environment. Understanding this colossal vulnerability forces us to focus entirely on preserving the little we have. Perhaps we absolutely should not broadcast into space and try to attract the attention of a distant alien intelligence. If the laws of the universe are so incredibly harsh and incomprehensible, our unknown neighbors may prove to be no less dangerous. Total silence and extreme caution become the most sensible survival strategies in this extremely bleak, dark forest. We must lie low quietly on our small planet and watch the horizon very carefully and anxiously. The final collapse of the standard model of cosmology marks the end of our scientific and intellectual naivety. We are saying goodbye forever to the childish fairy tales about a comprehensible, orderly, and absolutely safe physical world around us. Ahead of us all lies an incredibly long, painful, and very agonizing process of creating a new paradigm. The new physics will be extremely cold, counterintuitive, and completely indifferent to our petty human emotions. And we will all have to learn to live with the daily awareness of this terrifying, total alienness of the great universe. To successfully adapt to this new, harsh reality, humanity will require a complete and radical restructuring of scientific thinking. We will have to permanently cast aside all sentimentality and stop searching for hidden meaning or care in the laws of the cold cosmos. Further exploration of the universe will be the domain of researchers with nerves of steel, capable of constantly withstanding the colossal pressure of pure chaos. We ourselves must become as cold and ruthlessly precise as the mathematical equations we are about to discover. Only absolute and crystal-clear intellectual cynicism will allow our species to survive on the edge of this vast abyss of meaning. Reality turned out to be completely different from what we arrogantly thought, and this is the most important discovery of the current century. We are by no means the masters of the wild, but merely accidental, frightened observers on the edge of a gigantic cosmic anomaly. Further optical research will bring us even more shocking discoveries that will completely shatter existing theories. And our primary and sole task is to maintain our sanity in the face of this overwhelming cosmic unknown. The cold cosmos has thrown down the greatest challenge to us, and we have not the slightest right to look away in fear. The crisis in modern cosmology is by no means a temporary technical difficulty for theorists and astronomers. It is a fundamental and irreversible upheaval of our entire worldview, requiring the deepest and most painful philosophical reflection. The data from the James Webb Space Telescope cannot physically be simply ignored or permanently tucked away in a desk drawer. They shine brightly on the screens of scientific monitors, mercilessly and methodically destroying old, dusty theories and dogmas. There is no turning back. The illusion of our understanding of the universe has been shattered completely, irrevocably, and definitively. The complete inability to explain the emergence of early galaxies strikes a severe blow to the very weakest point of human civilization. For centuries, we have grown accustomed to considering our own intellect the highest stage of evolution in this remote corner of the galaxy. We sincerely believed that human intellect was capable of deciphering absolutely any code hidden by cunning nature. But a direct confrontation with the true scale of the universe suddenly laid bare our weakness and absolute species-level vulnerability. Intellectual helplessness instantly gives rise to a primal animal fear of the overwhelming power of the unknown depths of space. We stand uncertainly at a historical crossroads, where old science is dead and new physics has not yet been born. The best physicists must rediscover the true laws of gravity, the flow of time, and the formation of complex matter. This monumental process will require a colossal effort from absolutely all the forces of the global united scientific community. We will have to cast aside our egos forever and learn to think in terms that have no analogues on Earth. And only then will we have a tiny chance of approaching an understanding of the true structure of the universe. An age of 26 billion years, or the incredibly unstable rate of spatial expansion, paralyze us. They mercilessly deprive us of the comfort of a closed, warm, and fully calculable mathematical coordinate system. But it is precisely this sudden destruction of rigid boundaries that gives us a unique chance for a qualitative intellectual leap forward. Only by fully realizing the depth of our incredible ignorance can we begin to ask nature the right questions. Our collective anxiety must become our rocket fuel for moving through this conceptual scientific darkness. Every impossible galaxy found in an optical image serves as a stark reminder of our humility. The cosmos is under no obligation whatsoever to be friendly, logical, or strictly conform to our human mathematical expectations. It operates flawlessly by its own rules, forming structures of incredible size in defiance of all our textbooks. We can only very humbly observe these titanic processes from the safest possible distance on Earth. Our sole role in this colossal game is simply to survive and try not to go mad. The orbital telescope continues its incredibly solitary work in the icy void of high Earth orbit. Tomorrow, it may well send new data that will be even more devastating to our fragile psyche. We must all be mentally prepared for a complete and unconditional reevaluation of all the fundamental laws of our existence. Apparent stability is merely an optical illusion created by our limited local biological perception. True physical reality is a continuous and chaotic storm of utterly unimaginable destructive forces. Perhaps one day, we will indeed find a very elegant equation explaining all these observed mad paradoxes. A completely new theory of gravity will tie together ancient early galaxies and the strange behavior of the Hubble constant. But until that happy moment, we all must live in a world that we fundamentally do not understand. This demands immense existential courage from anyone who deeply reflects on the nature of our existence. No one can hide from these frightening facts in the simple concerns of daily life anymore. If there is truly something we do not understand, then we need a completely new philosophy of astronomical science. We must immediately stop projecting our primitive earthly habits onto the boundless, cold expanse of space. Extraterrestrial cosmic logic categorically demands that we abandon all familiar human patterns and entrenched prejudices. We must learn to calmly perceive the world without pathetic attempts to immediately force it into rigid frameworks. Only a completely empty and wide-open mind is capable of containing such a colossal and terrifying truth. Ultimately, this global crisis may turn out to be the greatest gift to all of humanity. It has rudely roused us from a state of very dangerous intellectual hibernation and incredible scientific complacency. The vast universe has given us a harsh shake, reminding us of the infinity of the process of true and profound knowledge. We have once again become small students in the presence of a great, harsh, and incredibly cold universal teacher. And we must learn this difficult lesson well at any cost, solely for the sake of preserving our own sanity. Reality turned out to be completely different from what you always thought, and this will never change. We have forever left the warm, safe haven of the incredibly simple and very understandable physical theories of the last century. Ahead of us all lies an incredibly frightening, yet truly mesmerizing journey into the very essence of the great cosmos. Be sure to keep your mind crystal clear. and never turn away from the terrifying abyss of incredible uncertainty. Only a bold and open gaze into the darkness can illuminate the long path to a true understanding of the world.